Family loading, please wait. Chapter 4.
Come on, Slowpoke. Put today on it.
Sonic called, using a phrase he'd picked up from Maddie that made Tom grin as he hunched over the bed, tying his work shoes. But instead of hurrying, he took his sweet time getting the loops in his laces perfectly, even before crossing them. He could hear the hedgehog slipping back and forth down the hall, wearing a new groove in the hardwood, no doubt. Knew the teen was peeking in the bedroom door, watching him in even slower motion than he was actually moving. At last, the blue blur came into focus in the doorframe, one red shoe tapping against the wood floor.
You're trying to kill me, is that it? Because it's working.
Tom made sure his double knot was secure and then stood, rolling his shoulders.
Have we ever been late? Besides for orientation, because you chickened out and ran off?
Sonic's foot stopped tapping, stomping down as he drew himself up to his full 3 inches.
I did not chicken out. I simply had other pressing matters to attend to that day.
Tom raised an eyebrow and Sonic's defiant expression melted into a pout.
Like having a mild panic attack.
The sheriff's teasing expression melted into something more sympathetic. They could joke about it now, sort of, but it hadn't been funny at the time. What had begun as a morning marked by nervous excitement had turned into an all-hands-on-deck hedgehog hunt by 10 a.m. When he'd gotten the call from Wade at noon about people seeing blue sparks flying at the baseball field, he actually put the sirens on and ran the couple of red lights between him and his boy. No reports of any power surges or outages had been filed, but the call had been right. From the parking lot, he could clearly see the sporadic bolts of blue electricity shooting up from under the bleachers. He had to remind himself to approach slowly, making his footsteps as loud as possible through the dirt.
Sonic? Buddy? You in there?
Huh? Stay back.
Tom came to a stop a few feet away, squinting through his sunglasses at the shadow glowing from hiding under the stands. Not fully curled into a ball, but sitting in the dirt, hugging his knees, rocking back and forth.
I'm not going anywhere. Just gonna stand right here, okay?
Another squeak and a crackle of electricity.
I don't want to hurt you. You should just go.
If you think I'm leaving you here alone, you're sparking up the wrong tree, pal.
A gasp, almost a laugh, and the glowing faded slightly.
That's terrible. You're terrible.
Tom shrugged, relief flooding his chest.
I liked it.
Puns to the rescue.
Can I come in?
Yeah, I guess so.
The sheriff made his way around to the side of the bleachers, crouching down as he stepped carefully underneath. In the darkened space, he took off his aviators, hung them from his shirt collar, and let his eyes adjust. Sonic was tucked underneath the lowest bench, still hugging his knees, eyes downcast.
Give it to me straight, Donor Lord. How much trouble am I in?
Good.
Tom sat back on his haunches, elbows resting on his knees.
Truancy, public disturbance, scaring the crap out of Maddie and me? I'd say 5 months jail time. But with good behavior, overcrowding, that's really more like 2 months tops.
The boy raised his head, horror struck, and Tom stifled a laugh.
Whoa, relax, buddy. I'm joking.
Sonic's brow furrowed, a few errant sparks climbing across his quills.
It's not funny.
Bad time to joke? Fair, fair.
Tom raised a hand up in surrender.
Serious time then?
A nod.
Please?
You're not in any trouble, but I would like to know what this is all about.
The teen tried to smirk.
What, the uncontrollable electricity? Totally normal space hedgehog stuff. Probably puberty or something.
I thought we were being serious, Sonic.
The smirk faded, blue shoulders slumped.
Right.
Tom shifted into a more comfortable position, not minding the dirt on his khakis as he sat down.
This whole weekend, all you could talk about was school. We thought you were excited for this. Then we pulled into the parking lot and
He snapped his fingers.
you were gone. Nobody knew where, and knowing you, it could have been all the way to Mexico. You were gone. Nobody knew where, And knowing you, it could have been all the way to Mexico.
His voice softened, his eyes suddenly tired.
You really scared us.
Sonic let one hand fall to his side, drawing circles in the dirt with his index finger.
I didn't mean to.
Tom searched the boy's face.
So, what happened?
I don't know.
Sonic started, then shook his head.
No, that's a lie. I should stop lying. I'm awful at it. I was excited about school. I've only been watching the other kids go for, like, my whole life. But that's the thing, right? I've been watching the other kids, like some creepy stalker, for years. I don't know all their names, but I know some. I know which one plays baseball, and which ones are in the band, and which ones hang out by the bike racks. The new kid isn't supposed to already have a building layout memorized, because he's kinda sorta maybe broke in a couple times to run around and check out the science fair projects. If I go there and start talking, they're all going to know, and like, become a freak, right? As if being a blue anthropomorphic alien animal wasn't bad enough. But a blue anthropomorphic alien animal and a stalker? Nope, bad idea. You guys can just homeschool me. You've got time for that, right?
Tom could only blink for a moment before exhaling heavily.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. Putting aside the breaking and entering for now,
Sonic laughed nervously.
while your particular circumstances are very uniquely you, you're not the first kid to worry about fitting in.
Well, I mean, yeah, but
Now, it will be awkward sometimes, probably, but it was awkward with us sometimes, and that's not so bad, right?
He watched Sonic fight a smile, and then the teen crawled over to sit next to him.
it's kinda bad.
Tom raised an arm up, checked quickly for any hint of a spark coming from the blue quills, and then cautiously brought the arm down around the boy's shoulders. Sonic stiffened, briefly, and then relaxed, leaning against the human side without a word. Tom took a moment to collect himself, quiet his pounding heart, logs this away, gush about it to Maddie at bedtime. When he spoke again, he was proud of how casual he was about keeping his tone.
You've been watching from the sidelines for a long time, kid. I think it's high time you got in the game, so to speak. Don't you?
Sonic sighed.
I guess, but it's gonna be hard.
The good things sometimes are.
Tom gazed down at the boy who'd turned his life upside down in the best way possible.
But that just makes it more worth the effort.
You promise?
I promise.
So far, they'd been right. It had been hard, a serious adjustment in a short amount of time that had already seen its share of serious adjustments. But it had also been good, as evidenced by the way they could already look back on that moment with a bit of perspective, a sense of humor. Tom reached out a hand and ruffled the fur atop the boy's head, got a jolt of serotonin when he didn't pull away.
Just keeping you humble, kid.
As he retracted his hand, he gave one ear a quick rub. Sonic's muzzle flushed pink, and he darted away, returning a millisecond later, more composed, backpack slung over one shoulder.
Hard to be humble when you're this awesome. Now, for real, let's go before I decide to run to school instead of giving you the honor of chauffeuring me.
Oh, forgive me, your awesomeness. What would I do without you kicking the back of my seat for 10 blocks?
Going back to talking to donuts?
Fair.
Not kicking the seat out of habit was hard enough. Not kicking on purpose because Tom had made a point of mentioning it was near impossible. It wasn't really Sonic's fault. His feet dangled off the booster seat and got uncomfortable real fast. Whoever had invented these dignity-destroying devices had apparently never been a kid, or they would have thought to include a footrest or something. He tried to say crisscross applesauce, but his knees hit the armrests, knocking the days-old empty juice box out of the cup holder. It fell onto the car floor, joining the pile that collected there in the scant month he'd spent occupying this space. Chin in one hand, he glanced around the back seat. He hadn't meant to make such a mess. In all honesty, he couldn't even remember having made it. It just sort of happened. Car rides were boring, so if they were going somewhere further than the school or the grocery store, He usually brought something along to keep him busy, and then those things just tended to stay in the car. So the rest of the bench seat beside him was littered with comic books and magazines, a handheld electronic game that they'd found at a neighbor's yard sale. The floor, well, Maddie had called it a health hazard, but snack trash had to go somewhere, right? Each time he looked at it all, he wanted to clean it up, but by the time they got to wherever they were going, he'd forgotten. So it just collected. It was weird, like a mini version of his room. But at least his room had a door he could close. He didn't leave stuff around the house if he could help it. He knew he could be careless, but he made a conscious effort to be a good house guest.
It's your house too.
They'd said that more than once, but that wasn't right. It was their house. He was just living in it. Just like this was Tom's van, and he was just a passenger. A messy passenger whose legs were starting to cramp. He let out a huff, leaned in towards the center of the van.
I still hate this, by the way.
Noted.
How long do I have to use this thing anyway?
By law, until you're 4'9".
Sonic strained up in his seat so forcefully that the seatbelt lock shot on him.
What?
I don't write the rules, buddy.
I don't know if I'll ever.
Take it easy, kid.
Through the rearview mirror, they made eye contact briefly.
I'll make you a deal. If you're not that tall by the time you turn 18, we'll come up with a different solution.
16.
17.
Sonic inhaled sharply, chest straining against the still taut seatbelt. He let the air out through his nose and muttered.
Fine.
He slumped back, folding his arms and pressing the soles of his sneakers up against the back of the driver's seat.
Me and you guys sucked.
The car slowed to a stop at a red light, and to his dismay, the human twisted around, raising his sunglasses to fix the hedgehog with a hard stare.
You do know it hurts when you say stuff like that, right?
Sonic's face flared so hot so fast, he thought the tips of his ears might have been smoking. His first instinct was to bolt, and the seatbelt suddenly felt like a straitjacket. Was this it? The end? How many times could he shoot his mouth off before they decided they'd had enough? How many times had it been? He couldn't remember, and that was probably a bad sign. The blood was pulsing in his ears, and he couldn't tear his eyes away. The light turned green, and the car behind them tapped on the horn, and Tom turned back to the road. A dawning feeling of pain in his biceps made Sonic glance down. His claws had come out. They had broken through his gloves. They never did, but they were jabbing him through the fabric, and he had to make a conscious effort to retract them. The blood that had rushed to his face, however, didn't seem to want to go anywhere. His stomach was clenching uncomfortably. How could a simple sentence send him so quickly into fight-or-flight mode? A tiny bubble of petulant anger at who he didn't know got in his mouth moving again.
Wade's put a guy on the spot.
If you don't want people calling you out for when you're being a jerk, then you probably picked the wrong family.
Sonic stared at the back of the driver's seat headrest, chewing his bottom lip. Tom didn't sound mad anymore. He actually hadn't really sounded mad at all in the first place. Sonic couldn't quite place the tone, but it was one that usually showed up when the human went into explainer of the world mode. Sonic had heard it enough times to recognize that much. But what it meant, that was still a mystery. But not mad, at least, and he was using that big, heavy word again. Weird. But a good weird, if the unclenching in his stomach was any indication.
That's something that families do?
The good ones, anyway. If they didn't, then what's the point, right? Just a bunch of people in a house being jerks.
The teen let out a short sigh.
Yeah, that sounds pretty awful. So what does the jerk do after getting called out?
Apologies are always nice, if they're sincere.
Tom slowed as he joined the drop-off line in front of the school.
'Cause usually the jerk didn't mean to be a jerk. He was just frustrated and not really thinking about what they were saying, right?
We're right, yeah.
Sonic gripped his knees. Through the windshield, the school loomed large. He didn't have much time.
I didn't mean to. You guys really don't. No, that's terrible. Of course they don't suck. You don't have to tell them that.
He glared at his shoes, talking to himself was something he was trying to stop doing. But when he got worked up, it was that much harder.
Shut up! No, I'm trying to. I know. Just get on with it before.
The car came to a stop. Sonic unbuckled his seatbelt and hurled himself towards the driver's seat, wrapping his arms around both the headrest and Tom's neck.
I'm sorry I was such a jerk. It's kind of my default setting sometimes. I don't know what I'm doing. Thanks so much for letting me live with you guys. You're seriously the best.
Came out all in one breath. Chest pounding, face burning, he dropped down to the floor and grabbed his backpack. With 2 hands, he yanked the door open and hopped onto the sidewalk.
He's Sonic.
He cringed. Maybe that wasn't right. Would he get a do-over? Slowly, he twisted back towards the van, surprised and relieved to see Tom smiling as he leaned one arm out of the window.
Yeah?
That was a pretty good one. You're not as bad at this as you think.
Whatever.
The human chuckled, a teasing glint in his eyes.
Had fun at school today. Try not to cry too much.
Psst. Yeah, alright, Donut Lord?
The smile dropped to pure terror in its place as a silence stretched out infinitely between the sidewalk and the van. And then time caught up with him again, and he was speaking without breathing.
I totally said Donut Lord, and any other word you heard was 100% not what I just said.
He spun away from the vehicle, mentally kicking himself as he felt the blood rush back to his face, and his claws pushed uselessly against his backpack straps. Without permission. His mouth kept running, making everything worse.
So whatever word you think I just said that isn't Donut Lord, well then, you're so wrong. Because I would never accidentally say anything other than...
Okay, son.
Tom's voice stopped him and he blinked. What? He had too much blood in his ears. He couldn't possibly have heard. Cautiously, sweating matting the fur on his temple, he turned back around.
Did you just say...
Ick.
The sheriff was smiling, facing forward but watching him out of the corner of his eye. He shrugged.
I said Sonic.
He put the van back into drive and offered a salute as he started to pull away from the curb.
See you for dinner.
The hat truck was left standing on the sidewalk, blinking, watching the van roll out of the parking lot. School hadn't even started yet, and it seemed like he'd felt enough for 3 days. Chest aching, stomach turning, a tiny, tiny smile tugged at his cheeks.
Jerk Lord.